capacity to teach to. We also have brought up the distinction between two fundamental enrichment structures, the vocational and the personal development, and perhaps the need to separate those out, as difficult as that is, so that we have a more reasonable understanding of the difference between professionalizing and deepening personal experience. Scott raised the suggestion that the education might determine pay scale, and this is a function of discussing how we continue to grow as teachers. And then another point was raised about the timing of YTT programs and whether or not the compression of time scales serves anybody, serves the culture, serves the participants. But then I wanted to kind of finish on this bit here, and I've made a little box for it, because in looking at ways forward, this is I think this is probably our job if we want to do a little roundup section. Rosemary's idea of figuring out as a community who and what we represent and what the picture of reasonably well-rounded yoga practice is, and beginning to communicate that as an essential function of community action. I just wanted to focus on this a little bit. What would this look like? Would it be a manual? Would it be a series of descriptions of skills that a person would ideally develop? And I mean, because we don't have this interests me, because currently we have a yoga teacher as somebody who's spent 200 hours studying this number of subjects in this ratio, but we don't have an 80 or 90 page manual that everybody is referring to saying what is a good yoga teacher in general. And is that part of what you're thinking of? And you just want to pass it a microphone. And does anybody else have thoughts on that? Would that be a useful document?
I think it would be difficult, because what I would outline and the way I would teach would be different because of the background I come from. I have yoga teachers who come, and I say, well, if you're coming to my classes, even if you're a trained yoga teacher, you should start in the level 1-2 class, because that's where I articulate the principles of using breath with dynamic postures. This is where I talk about it. In my more advanced classes, people know that, so I give them practices with different kinds of techniques, so that I don't think that, if anybody wants to cover all that I have in my, program, they need to work with me and experience that. And I don't think reducing it to a document will, a document that would be shared widely would work without the experience. And I would imagine the same for everybody else, because everyone who comes from a specific tradition has a way, a set of understandings and that are all going in the same direction, but that are articulated differently. So I think, a single compilation of a document to me seems
difficult.
Wouldn't get any. I don't know how useful it would be by itself.
Okay, so maybe it's not a document, but the heart of educating the public and also yoga culture in the art of self-definition, which is something that clearly we're woefully deficient in, is maybe for good reasons, I don't know, but how else might that take place? We only have one live mic.
It's coming to me. Anyone else like to? Monica? Sure.
The Yoga Alliance a description of what's required in a program, in a basic program, could be a description of what a teacher is, a description of what a teacher needs, and their principles, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, one of the strengths of the Yoga Alliance, and it has many faults, but one of the strengths is they determined what a teacher needs without specifying the exact content or the approach. And we would all perhaps argue on how many hours for this and how many hours for that, and we would perhaps disagree because of our personal predilections. But I mean it's a very basic beginning. It's a very basic beginning. So we're saying that we are all educated in these 6 things to a certain extent, or whatever it is. And I think that would be a basic beginning, and your methodology and mine may be different, but we're looking for we're looking to develop in ourselves and instruct in others those things, and pedagogical technique is certainly one of them. And scope of practice, if I could request that scope of practice be written somewhere, because I think it's in terms of delineating and defining scope of practice. Who we are, yeah. Of who we are, what we're trained to do, what we're training others to do, and what we're not. Yeah. Does it both have to be a positive and a negative statement to make it clear? Like if somebody came up with a scope of practice statement. We use negative statements just to highlight it, just to bring it out so that people say, oh, that's what you mean. Like it's not psychotherapy, it's physical movement or whatever,
I had one last thought, which is that it sounds like, just from another overview perspective, it sounds like that when we speak of standards, what we share, what we can come together on, there are cool issues that we will be cool towards each other in terms of they don't need to be solved radically. We're going to argue and suss them out over a long period of time, and then there are hotbox issues. And I'm wondering if that's maybe that's a good focus for the next meeting, is to divide up our concerns, because this is such a vast topic, into things that need immediate address. Whether it's online certifications or online certifications for removing breast tumors, or whatever. I mean, it'll get I'm sure it gets very hot in the years to come, but maybe that's a good model for moving forward. I don't know. But does anybody have anything to add? One more thing? All right. I'll fire up the harmonium.
I just wanted to suggest that everyone look at this absolutely devastating documentary called "Waiting for Superman," which is about the education system in the United States. But the one bright spot in the whole thing, and luckily it's treated with some amount of humor. The one bright spot is the distinct advantage of having a good teacher, no matter what the conditions, and no matter how much money and so on is spent. And I think that's something that, it seems like we're all agreeing on that here, and I absolutely agree with you. Why don't we who want to do this move forward, and I find that prospect very exciting. So.
If you know Isha Upanishad, you can sing along.